Thank you for being a part of the Minority Alliance organization meeting today. Today, our topic will be talking about the importance of being independent, especially as a minority in a country where there's a two-party system to where it may put people into a type of box or a feeling of I have to either vote left or vote right instead of, I want to vote for whoever has the best policy that I think. I don't want to be put into a box of I'm either Republican or Democrat per se. And I think that's a huge thing and a different ideology that we should build within the minority community, because no matter what party someone who represents you is coming from, is certain policies that they're backing that matter. And if this policy works for your community, if this policy, is good for your community, it shouldn't matter what party that a person comes from. And I feel like we've got so trapped into a party system to where you say anything beneficial towards Trump and somebody calls you Republican or feels like you're a Trump supporter. You say anything too far to the left, then somebody feels that you're a Democratic supporter, instead of, everybody having their own independent mindset and how they vote overall. So I just want to ask you, Mark, what do you feel is the importance in, having an independent mindset, and which ways can it be beneficial to one to have an independent mindset when it comes to voting?
Yeah, I think the first piece of having an independent mindset is being realistic about your goals and what your thoughts are. You need to be honest with yourself about what kind of policies that you're looking for, and the fact that, we're talking about our own community, we're talking about, our own people, our own interests, but we are also looking at the fact that things would have to be compromised to a degree. If everything were shaped around a particular mindset based on the way certain people live and way certain people, the needs of certain groups, then it's going to by proxy alienate others. So there's going to be a practice of a comfortable compromise that has to come from policy. I mean, it's all give and take. You have to, give some to and hold off on some things, and even some important things, in order to get some other things that are equally important, if not more important. So being realistic and honest about that, and what are your actual ideals? What are you actually looking for? What motivates you? What's important to you? And being able to lay those things out, and being able to line up the policies and the ideologies that you're looking for versus what's on the table at the moment. Unfortunately, with this being just this two-party system, everything's kind of gone into this hyper partisan kind of divide where, and as we've spoken of on other calls, where people end up almost in these gangs. You're either, liberal Democrat or you're conservative Republican, and just having an idea about something people have this tendency to just put you in that box. And no matter what you think, no matter what you say, you're now in that box. You may not, have a particular affinity to the Democratic Party, but, you think that, hey, I think everybody born in the United States should have access to medical care, and it shouldn't bankrupt them. And someone will call you a radical leftist for even saying that, and you didn't even have, you may have never voted for a Democrat in your life, and that's the box that people get put in. They get sick of that. There have been interviews that even people that have voted for Donald Trump, where they said that the only reason they did it is because there were, a few policies that actually matched what they were looking for, but they did not, they weren't voting for his ignorance. They weren't voting for his racism. They weren't voting for all these other things. They voted for what they thought was the most important thing to them. And unfortunately, with us being in this major two-party system, and there hasn't been really a rise of that kind of independent mindset where we can actually do what this country was meant to do, which is put policy together and make a hybrid society of what we're looking for, which is what America actually is. I mean, to even say the words Democratic Republic is a hybrid. It is not, because Democratic system and Republic are two separate entities. So being able to, we used to know how to pick and choose from the buffet of policies and ideologies to be able to put together a working, functioning government. But we've kind of lost, we've lost our way. And now that we've kind of grown into this hyper partisan thing where once you get to the point where you can start the mudslinging and the name calling, it kind of throws everything off. And so there are more people now, as we grow through and dealing with these modern problems, who have a more independent mindset. They don't want to be put in this box or that box. They have their own ideas. So you almost have to ignore the noise and look to the policies that work for you, and then also look to the things that don't work for you. What are you going to give up for the ideas that you're willing to put down? If you want, small government and you want specific tax brackets and things like that, are you willing to take on the rest of the baggage that comes with that? That's something that a lot of people have learned over the last 3+ years, that maybe that answer is no. And so, there's also some things where you look at an established moderate Democrat, just like the Biden-Harris campaign, you go, well, it's not necessarily my cup of tea, but I also realize this over here does not work for me. So again, it's how much are we willing to have as a comfortable compromise to get what we want, while we continue to look for and vet and prop up some of those people who are coming up in the world, who are actually having some of those ideas that fit us a little bit better, and being a little bit more open-minded to being able to put an independent into office. We see it on a lower level. There are independent mayors, there are independent state senators, congressmen, things like that. And, we're just not seeing it on a national level for the most part. And I think as, things kind of open up, we need to be looking more towards that, because those are the type of ideologies that we're going to be a lot more kin to. And then also, as more and more voters become of age and they live in this world, they see what it's like. They go to college and go into horrific debt and come out and not be able to find a job. So they see a lot of these different things as well. And there needs to be representation, true representation of the actual populace, not just of a two-party system that's kind of set itself up to be this juggernaut machine that replenishes itself and feeds itself and pays itself. That's what I think.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good evening, brothers. Yeah, just, good conversation here. For me, I come from a place where I feel a lot of Americans are, and that's just beat down by the two-party system. It's good to have an independent thought. It would be great if we united together and actually put some power behind a third presidential candidate. But, in my lifetime, and I'm, fairly old, that the two-party system has a couple of purposes, right? One is to divide us. There's no other purpose for the Democratic and Republican Party but to divide us and to have us in this spin that we're in. I think it's the worst it's ever been. Most people that I talk to are just beat down by that system, which is why we had one of the lowest voter turnouts in United States history in 2016, where 60% voted, because people just don't believe in either side. And now the spin is happening again, where you have Democrats that are talking negatively about the Democratic candidates, but they also don't want to vote for the Republican. So I'm hearing I'm not voting, or I'm just going to cast my vote for a third party, which is pretty much throwing the vote away, because the Democratic and Republican systems they won't break down that system and say, we're going to allow the people to power up and put a third party, or even a liberal. Like, liberals have progressed in my lifetime, but they can't even get a candidate that to have any serious momentum to run against the Democratic or Republican nominees. So for me, the system is broken, and a lot of people are beat down by it, and they say, I either don't want to vote, or I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. I'm sure you guys see the same thing, on your social media or talking to people. And then you have those that are strong left, strong right. It's just a time in our country where I think, Brother Colin, you're absolutely right. I think there needs to be some sort of vehicle movement to actually try to put together a real candidate to run against the beast. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Maybe our children, we start teaching that stuff now, but right now they just have they have the game in the chokehold, and they spin policy, and now they control media to have us fighting against each other for the better candidate, when in actuality, when presidents get elected, very little of what they sign or what they do or what they get passed affects us, less than we think, right? They make these promises in the speeches that they're going to do 20 things to make our lives so much better. They get in office, they may do 2. All the other stuff they get passed or sent through is at the dictatorship of the lobbyists who helped them get in the White House. So I say all this just to say that in the people in the circle I talk to and the people I interact with, there's a similar mind state of just beat down by the system. And I'm either going to cast my vote for the lesser of 2 evils, or I'm not going to vote because they don't believe we can have a valid third-party independent candidate to actually have some real momentum. I'd like to tackle that topic and see what steps can we put in place to start putting together something that can help an independent or I'm not a liberal, but any third party that can have a real candidate, a horse in a race to go against the beast that is just keeping us divided.
Yes, sir. And I mean, to, back you on that end, I mean, I wrote down a topic today that I wanted to talk about, something that I preposition to people to just put on their mind. Of course, as you said, it's going to take a while to actually catch fire, and it may not be even in my generation, it may be in the generation following mine. But, I believe we need to push for a 5-party system. And I put the limit on 5 for the reason of we don't want to become a country similar to Israel or one of these countries who has a parliament where, it's too many different voices that you don't really have a majority per se. We want to keep ourselves within a system to where we will still have a majority. And I believe, 5 allows you to keep an balanced system. And I believe, I'm stuck on that number for the reason of I feel like that at least gives people more of a variety. And I believe you have more people represented, by having that many parties. 3 would be nice, of course, moving from a 2-party system where we're at now. But I believe we should push, straight for, what they say, go big or go home. I believe we need to push, a couple more parties to a forefront. And as you said, all it takes is them having real candidates. I mean, to be honest, even with the election this year, let's say Bernie Sanders would have ran only strictly as an independent. He wouldn't have had to, go neck to neck with Biden until, now, after a convention. So you would have had people who, may have swayed more that way. But if that's never an option or on the table, for people to have that, it's like, well, I didn't really want to vote for Biden, but I mean, as you said, it is what it is. I mean, our goal is to get Trump out of there, but politics has to go further than we just don't like the guy that's either been in there or we just don't like this guy that's running, so we got to vote for this guy. You're stuck between the two. And as Americans, if we truly believe in democracy and truly believe in this is the people's government and the government works for the people, we should be able to have more of a pool of choices when it comes to especially the top position in the country of being the president. The top position is made, the choice is made between 2 people every year. Only 2 people for the number 1 position in the country. I mean, that makes no sense. I think that, we just gotta, as you said, we gotta get together as minorities and push for these things that we believe. And I mean, of course, other people who see the certain things and the certain movements that are going on within the country, whether minority or not, who backs, these movements too. And, as American people, period, we should push for a multi-party system is my belief, instead of, we're so stuck on either being Democrat or Republican instead of, being truly a country of, you know, the melting pot, as they say.
So just to piggyback on what Brother Anthony was saying, I think we need to identify the beast that needs to be slayed here. And I think the thing that keeps us from having multi-party system, the thing that keeps us from getting there, is the beast that needs to be slayed, which is money in politics. Can we solve that on the national level? Not yet, not yet. But I think if we could actually start on the lower level and, you know, on the local level in city and county and state elections, and actually get some of those initiatives on the ballot, get some proposals on the ballot that just evens out the playing field, you know, where a person can only take in a very low, modest dollar amount, and that you can't take in, you know, large sums of money. You can't have gigantic amounts, and that some deal can be worked out where everyone is given equal amount of time as far as like for running ads, for running commercials, things like that. If you took the money out of politics and people had to run on ideals, you'll get a multi-party system pretty quickly. It probably is a generational thing. It probably is going to take a generation to get it all the way up to the national level, but I think it can be done on a smaller level and a lot sooner. And I think once that, if that ice can be cracked, then you now have precedent to be able to introduce it as policy on a larger level and not have it immediately struck down, because it does have precedent in a lower level, and it does have precedent in, you know, whether it be in cities or in counties, you know, wherever, and you'll be able to use that as a springboard to try and get that. That's the big problem. The big problem is that these people are coming in with literally billion-dollar machines. I mean, you know, there are hundreds of millions of dollars being done. I mean, I heard something to the effect of within 24 hours of Biden announcing Harris as his pick, they took in like, you know, like $100 million in donations. You know, that's crazy. And the amount of money that's being slung around here is going to prevent any type of real grassroots campaign from ever getting a foothold into the beast. So I think that's really, you know, that's the thing. That's the thing that once that's slayed and people can actually run for office on ideals, actually, it is, I mean, that's the holy grail to this whole thing.
Yeah, you just broke it down. So the money, like you said, that's the biggest part of the beast. Why do most third party nominees pull out of elections? Because they can't keep up with the campaign funds of the other two, right? So they pull out. I can't keep up with this, right? We don't have the funds. Why is that? Because the people that really need that third party candidate aren't united. We're not united at the bottom. And you bring up another good point, Marcus. It has to be done from the bottom up, because the top of the elites of the world that run government politics across different nations help fund the two-party system. If you look across the world, a lot of countries have a two-party system, and it's a reason for it. Easier to control, it's less. They're funded by the elites, so no other party can keep up financially. But that's not an indestructible system. If we do start from the ground up with an independent candidate, even if it's at the local level. So this is another issue that I think groups like this, Minority Alliance Organization, and others need to come together and start helping minorities across the United States, first and foremost, unite on who they vote for outside of the presidency and down. We talked about this a while ago, Colin, how, and I come from the inner city, so forgive me, my experience may be different, but all of my life voting or watching my elders vote, it was a scenario where they knew who they voted for the presidency. For a long time in the 90s, 80s, 90s, it stopped right there. Like they who's my senator, who's my rep in the House for my, like, and there's no education. So blacks, from my point of view, what I've seen, blacks don't even know who to vote for senator. They hadn't done the research on that. Who's my rep? Who am I voting for the House? And then all the way down, because if you notice when you vote, the ticket is pretty lengthy. And people go in all hyped up with the presidential vote and they punch that president and they either playing poke the dots on the rest or they're not even voting for the rest, which hurts you more than the presidency. Very little of what that man does is going to filter down to your everyday life. Very little. He's going to still raise your taxes, all of them, even though they say they're not. I've never had a president get in there and saw my taxes go down and say, wow, he lowered taxes. Never happened. But all of them say they will, right? So it's more than just voting for the presidency. If we voted united on every position, political office underneath the presidency, we could groom a third party independent candidate from the ground up, push them through this to the Senate. Once you get to the Senate, you're one step from the White House. So I think there's something to be said for what you said, Marcus, because if we approach it that way, I think we can make some real change. But the only issue is unity, because without unity, again, it goes back to the money, right? If we all got behind this person and we're willing to put our money where our mouth is, we could really, people say this all the time about minorities. It's more of y'all, but these, not just the political parties, but the certain entities in general keep you guys separated. And they've been doing this to us since the beginning of time. Every time we try to unite, they throw something out at us and make us scatter and go back out again. We're in that right now. As soon as the people are getting fed up and we start to unite different races, saying, hey, I'm disenfranchised just like you. I may be, white or Latino or black, but we're all struggling to make ends meet. We should unite. Every time we get that close to uniting, boom, something happens. Pandemic, terrorists, because they say the people are getting restless, so we need to throw something out there to separate them. And it's just the same old game I've seen played over and over in my life. If we overcome that piece with a chess move to truly unite and stay united regardless of what they throw at us, right now they laughing. They got us mask, anti-mask, Trump, anti-Trump, Democrats hating their own, Democrats for and against their own politicians. I mean, it's just we're in a silly spin cycle. And I just believe that, unity of minorities, which is why I like this organization, we truly have to stay focused on how do we keep us united. And minorities, in my mind, takes on a broader definition than just, Latin, Black descendants. There's a lot of, forgive me, this may be controversial, but to me, minorities are us, the people that live at a certain poverty level or financial level. There's poor whites that say, hey, I'm like you. I may be minority by race, but I'm a majority by race, but I'm a minority by my economic living standards. We need to unite everybody below a certain line that are all living the same reality that they're forcing us to live, and say, we group up and we can overthrow the system. That's a tall task, but I believe it could be done. If I didn't, I wouldn't be part of this organization or speaking up and writing books and trying to just say, hey, we could do this thing, y'all. But it's going to take leaders to really stay consistent and get it done.
Yes, sir. And I believe one of the things right now working in our favor, whether people see it on the forefront or not, as far as pushing to the next level of this narrative, of having knowing more about who you're voting for, having more political knowledge about laws that are going to affect you and the people that are going to be elected that are going to affect, as you said, your daily life, especially at the local and state level, the city level, that's who determines, how many bus routes you guys have in the city. That's who determines if you guys have public transportation in the city. So that even it's more important at the local level than anything that we get more politically inclined and informed and know, who we're really backing. As you said, you go to a ballot booth and you just sit there, and after you vote for, whoever's the president, or you maybe vote for your senator, is about as far as after that, you're not knowing too many more of those names unless you've come across them, in your own personal research 9 times out of 10, which most people don't. It's either I'm gonna vote this way or that way based on what I think, or it's a guessing game. As I said, we used to test in school on the Scantron. You're just bubbling in.
Right. And the importance of this group, Colin, is for you and all of us to say, hey, minorities, even if they're too lazy to do the research, we've done the research for you. This is what your local, the lowest political office you can hold, okay, that's going to affect your neighborhood. The Minority Alliance organization has researched and vetted this candidate out. They have the best interests of minorities or our communities at hand. This is who we vote for local house or whatever it is. So at least they have a direction, because like you said, it's definitely, they don't know who to vote for. They just punching holes. So I think that's the importance. One of the key factors that you talked about when you started the organization is we can be a guide to say, hey, we've done the research for you, since, you know, this is a instant social media, give it to me now society. And we think this may be the best candidate for, you know, or at least spit the facts out, not even force it, say, here's what these two people have done, and this is where they fall on the issues, right? Because we have this line of issues that we say fall on one side or the other, right? So that's how you vote for your president. And where are they on what are the big ones? Abortion, you know, women's right to choose. Where do they fall on faith-based initiatives? Where do they fall? So you throw your candidates on either side of the line and you vote that way, right? But
if you don't have
again,
the information for them, you know, if it's
right.
not anywhere accessible, easily accessible to the common, I say this much: the American with the IQ of 85 should be able to easily find the candidate that's running that they're voting for. You know, it should be easily accessible to every American to find information on these people who are running, you know, as you said, at every level, really, but even the local level, which people have no clue 9 times out of 10 who's running for their local city office, or, you know, running for congressman in their state for their district. A lot of people don't have any clue who this person is or what they've done, you know. So we gotta, I definitely agree with you. And I hope that, you know, through these talks that we're having, and as we have more elections come about, and as we grow as an organization, we start to come across candidates that we feel, you know, we at least want to put a spotlight on them, so that people who wouldn't normally look in their direction are looking in their direction, and, you know, starting to want to inquire about them themselves. And I mean, I think that's what it takes. But if you never see the person's name until you go to the ballot box to vote, I mean, you know, you have no clue.
Right. And there's a process to voting that I use, that I try to teach people and I taught my children to use, right? And a lot of people said, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, this is, you know, it's out there, it's public. So when you get to this, you know, the level of, if it typically in this country's history, the presidential candidates are from senators, right? In most scenarios, not Trump, but if you go back through elections, most of the candidates, the Republican and Democratic candidate, come from the Senate, right? Even Obama, he was my senator in Illinois. You can look at their record on how they voted, right? You can look at anybody in the House and any senator. You can go back as public record and see how they voted on issues that are important to you. That's my political, that's the way I choose a candidate. Where do they fall on my issues? This is important to me. I call myself a man of faith. I want to, you know, care about taxes. I want to care about these things that these presidents say. So go see how they voted, because they'll give a speech to the people when they're on the campaign trail that'll be total opposite of how they voted their entire career in the Senate or in the House. And it's like, just go back and do your research. But again, we have to figure out a way to combat that, because the society, and myself included, nowadays you just want everything right away. So if you see something on Facebook, you're like, okay, that sounds true enough, I'm gonna vote for that person. And people aren't going, and not everybody, but the masses. There are people like myself, like Marcus, like us here on this call, and people we know that do our due diligence, but there's way more of us that are just being fed their opinion through social media, which makes platforms like this even more important.
Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree with that. I believe that is the natural evolution of at least the social media footprint of an organization like this is to inform and educate. And I think that there's definitely room for that. A little bit earlier today, I posted, a friend just sent out, what's the dates that, absentee and the mail voting starts. It's, for my staff, I actually let them know because, here in Texas, we do early voting. It starts, October 13th, I believe. And, we've already got our system in place. Hey, listen, understood. It's going to be, if you're going to go vote, you're going to pretty much need the day. So you have this extra time. So if you need this time or whatever, and you're going to go vote, just let us know ahead of time. Things like that. And I think the natural evolution of an organization like this, at least, like I said, from our social media footprint, is definitely in educating, being able to help prop up people that we're seeing that fit those ideals by being able to show people, because a lot of times they're not going to read, they're not going to do their research. They're going to take, they want sound bites, they want quickly disseminated information. I mean, we have an ever-growing technological footprint, but an ever-shrinking attention span, and we can take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Amen to that one.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to go ahead with our allotted time today and dig into our, second side of things. But, I mean, even if there's any closing statement on the first topic that either one of you wanted to make, I mean, me personally, I just feel like, people really have to wake up. As I said, I say about every other week, people got to wake up, and we got to all get on board with what, whether it's with this organization or back in another organization that you truly believe, have your best interest as an American, and get behind that organization, see what's some information, what are some things they're doing in your community around you, because the way you affect your community around you, it affects the whole system in general. The current, traditional, as you guys call it, the beast, the current traditional system, the only way to combat it is to, unite in different ways and, come together, or else it'll never happen. And when it comes to the Democratic National Convention that has been occurring this week, I know Monday night, I believe Bernie Sanders, and I saw his there, and just some of the things that he was saying about, the Democratic Party and the direction that they're going in. And I just wanted to hear a little bit of you guys' take on, if you were able to catch a glimpse of the couple, people who spoke at the convention.
Yeah, I mean, I caught some of night one and night two. I mean, I definitely heard Michelle Obama's speech, which was pretty good. I mean, she is pretty awesome at being able to give the speeches that really hit home. And I think, there were a few other people that spoke there. I don't know the young lady's name, but she had a very, very powerful message by saying that she is a Democrat, her father's a Republican. He died of COVID-19, and she said that his only pre-existing condition was trusting Donald Trump. And that was a pretty strong message. And, these things, especially in the format in which we're having them, where you're not going to have the giant crowd pops and things like that, you have to grab people, and you have to grab them fast. And I think one of the things that we're seeing so far is, with the exception of, that little blip from last night, and we'll definitely get into that. But I think that, being able to show that, so many different voices, even Republican voices coming in and saying, okay, listen, normally I'm not standing here, but this is a mess and it needs to change. And the fact that you have the, I think that was the major message they were trying to convey, is that, this is not going well, and that this is not how we're able to do things, and things should be better, and all the anxiety that everybody's feeling, like that needs to stop. And I think that they've done a pretty good job so far being able to convey that message. It hasn't been as much policy driven, but then again, conventions usually are not. Conventions are shows. So as a show, I think they are definitely making the most of it, and taking, just because they have a younger demographic and they have a more diverse demographic, it has a greater, stronger reach. And as you see it develop over time, that you can see kind of what the ideologies of these are going to be. This one's going to be all about trying to heal the country, trying to reach more people, and saying that we're better than this and we can move on and we can do better things. The other one is going to be about the division and the fear. And I posted earlier, it's going to be all about the others are coming for you, and I'm the only person that can stop it. So just seeing how that's developing over time, over these few days, I think that there's definitely a boost in advantage and enthusiasm on the Democratic side, as not just wanting all the stuff that's been going on to end, but in some hope, at least a little, though it be albeit cautious, optimistic hope, that once you get a different administration in, depending on the cabinet that is picked, that you may actually start to see some movement on a few things that help us. Again, I don't think Biden is necessarily going to help us as minorities get where we're trying to go, but I think I don't think he will actively do harm. And that's a lot better than what we've gotten lately.
Right.
And that's definitely what we need to be looking for, at least in the short term, while we start to build on being able to go after other things.
Yeah, so I picked up on a couple of important things that Bernie Sanders as well as Michelle Obama said, and they were kind of in tune with each other, but they were kind of dropped in the middle of their speeches, but they were very serious. They weren't even political, right? So Bernie says two things. He says the future of our democracy is at stake, as well as the future of our planet, right? So those are serious things. Those are not, Trump's going to raise taxes. These are like, hey, you guys don't, like, they know something. These people at these higher levels of politics, or rub shoulders with people, know something that we don't know, as far as the whole structure of this country changing, moving closer to the police state, as people say is near. Michelle Obama doubled down and said, this was a hard endorsement for Biden. She said, we have to vote for Biden like our lives depend on it. I'm like, these things aren't even political. They're saying that if we leave the current regime in place, they're going to usher in an era that we don't want to be a part of. Those two things just stood out to me. Like, what do they know and why are they saying this? I think, again, like Marcus said, those things are typically a dog and pony show, and they just, a lot of, it's a rally, right? But at the same time, they were dropping some very serious things, which lets me know that they know something that we don't know, and they're saying it's very important that we remove the current regime. But again, the Republicans will get in there and get their chance and say the exact same thing against the Democratic Party. So it's just a he said, she said. But interesting stuff here. I'm definitely, the weird part about me is everything about me professionally falls on the Republican side. My money, I want that policy, but everything in me as a person falls on the Democratic side. So it's always tough for me. People always ask me, what are you? I say, I don't know what I am, but I'm definitely going to vote. I'm going to do the best job I can, do the best research I can, and vote. And I think if we could get everybody to that place to say, man, just do the best research you can. If you don't know what to do, come to the Minority Alliance Organization page, and we got some facts and we got some things on there that may help you make a decision. But you have to vote. I think that's something that we have to drive home, because it does matter. So, but yeah, good stuff from the DNC convention. I'm looking forward to watching the RNC as well.
Most definitely. I look forward to seeing a little bit of both of them. And I mean, as you said, with Michelle, you said the biggest thing that she said that stuck out, but at the end of her speech there, she was like, the soul of our country is at stake with this election. And I mean, I think it truly is. I mean, even with what I said earlier, I think you will see, as I said, the true colors of the American people in this election. Because even though everyone feels, I mean, heck, we all felt for the most part that Hillary was a shoo-in, and we see how that went. I mean, even though she won the popular vote, at the end of the day, you're still in a system where votes aren't everybody in the system could vote. I mean, let's, and a serious note, everybody in the system could vote. And because of the way our system is structured, you will still have certain regions that will go to, Trump per se, that, shouldn't. But it's the way everything is set up. We live in a system where we're set up to be this two-party system, and we have to overcome it, as you said, together. And I mean, in the conclusion today, if you guys have any other remarks that you want to make, and then I'll do our conclusion.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on something also, just to kind of piggyback on what was being said about how serious Bernie was and how serious Michelle Obama was. We do have to understand the situation. For 3.5 years, in case people haven't been paying attention, the limits of presidential power, the limits of the types of subtle crimes, subtle kind of shucks, I didn't know I couldn't do that crimes have been tested to see how far a person could go before he could get pushed back. And then by getting impeached and having the Senate say up front that they would not convict them, and then for them to hold up to that and not convict, the limits of presidential power, the fence is going out farther and farther and farther. So yeah, if we are in a situation where you need to vote like your life depends on it, because it might. We need to vote like our democracy depends on it, because it might. Because if that presidential power fence can get pushed that far out, how much farther can it be pushed when you have 4 years of unfettered power, where no one can come after you, where no Senate's going to convict you, where no one's going to truly hold you accountable, except for a couple of news organizations that you can write off as fake. So we cannot play this game anymore. And I think they did a great job of sending that message home, and hopefully that they continue to show that and drive home that seriousness, and make sure that people understand. Yeah, like no, the civic duty has never meant more than it means right now, and we need to understand that and act on that.
I think we touched on everything I wanted to talk about, but I think we need to figure out what we can do as part of this organization to encourage people to vote. You touched on something about how the popular vote and the electoral college votes work. But if everybody votes, you have to get enough for the popular vote to get a state, right? You don't have to win all 50 states popular vote, which is what happened in the last election. But if you get the bigger states that have the most electoral college votes, you can win the presidency. So at the end of the day, our votes, the public vote does count, because there are certain states that has a bunch of those electoral college votes that go to the presidency when they win certain states. And he happened to win those bigger states because we didn't vote. It was, and the sad part is some of those states were minority driven states, but again, 60% of the nation voted in 2016, and we absolutely can't have that. Win or lose vote. And I think as we get closer to November, I'm going to do my part, and as well as, I urge you, Colin, with this organization, to just vote. And here's our information. We'll help you make a decision if you're too lazy to research it. We've done some research for you. Here's where the candidates fall on these important issues. Draw the line down the middle. You make your decision, but vote. I think that's going to be paramount come November.
Yes, sir. And I'll say, as with the organization, I've been trying to Google myself a lot of different sample ballots, but I believe the only way you can get a true official ballot that will be out is, you have to have it mailed to you. So it would take, for us to get this type of deal together, it would take, different people. As I said, it takes all of us coming together and putting in our input, because personally, we live in Georgia. I can put up a ballot for different areas of Georgia, a lot more, easier than I can for, as I said, I think Mark's out in Texas. I don't know too many, Texas districts and stuff of that nature. So that's why it does take all of us to make this, a real occurrence, and for everybody to be able to see, on a full scale what's going on. So I'll try my best to get as many ballots as I can posted on our page between now and, the election in November. And that way people can at least see a little bit of information about these people who are on the ballot, and we'll make it, have it clearly out there for people. So, you don't have to necessarily go digging as deep as we normally do when we do our research and stuff of that nature. So yeah, we will keep our word on that end as being, the organization that, at least keeps people informed and makes the information simple to digest more so than anything.
Yes, sir.
And on that end, on that end, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up for us this week. It was a great conversation as always, and as I said again, last week we had postponed the school drive up until this week, so we'll have a little recap of it and how it goes next week on our podcast there. But really looking forward to being able to do more events like this going forward and be able to show community unity. That's the biggest thing. I put up a hashtag probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago or so, and it's a term that really stuck out to me. It's like in the disunity in our community. And, I think that's the first thing that we have to do beyond anything. We have to find where we can agree on within our own communities, and push forward our policies as a community more so than anything, and be willing to stick our necks out for our neighbors. And that's basically what it takes. I think the American people have lost touch with, how do you say, the soul of the country, the morals of the country. And we just, as a organization, we will continue to push the rhetoric to support our country and take our country back.
Amen to that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you,
you.
fellas.
Thank you, brothers.
All right. Yes, sir.